If there's one thing I know about America, it's this. Americans never give up. They never give in. They never cry uncle. They just struggle, innovate, and they preserve and persevere.
And tonight, President Joe Biden and First Lady Dr. Jill Biden are back in Washington after their whirlwind visit. The president gave a rousing speech at Energy Park about Houston recovering from the winter storm and Americans getting through the pandemic.
The president and First Lady spending about 6 hours in the Bayou City. Air Force One landed at Ellington Field this afternoon, where the couple was greeted by Governor Greg Abbott, along with several U.S. representatives, including Sheila Jackson Lee, Al Green, Lizzie Fletcher, Sylvia Garcia, Harris County Judge Lena Hidalgo, and Mayor Turner also there, the mayor dressed up for Go Texan Day.
We had a team of reporters following the president through town today, beginning with Adam Bennett at his first stop at Houston TransStar.
Yeah, guys, President Biden's first stop was here at Houston TransStar. He called it, quote, one hell of an operation and probably the best one in the country. The president also listened to state and local emergency officials update on winter storm recovery. Harris County's top emergency manager told President Biden more than 10,000 people reported broken pipes in their homes, and fixes are still in progress. Mark Sloan also said several water utility districts are still repairing their systems. 57,000 residents still have to boil their water today. Outside, a small crowd gathered to watch, and some cheered as President Biden's motorcade left after about an hour.
The First Lady came straight to the Houston Food Bank. She teamed with educators to stuff bags with food for children. Dr. Jill Biden was also among the volunteers who filled boxes for elderly Houstonians. The president later joined her to tour the facility and meet volunteers. The president described the Houston Food Bank, which is the largest in the country, as incredible. His hope is to find more ways that the federal government can help food banks across America.
Both the president and First Lady ended their visit with a tour of FEMA's mass vaccination site at NRG. Then the president came here to the parking lot to deliver his remarks. He spoke about FEMA deploying money to Texas and about that disaster declaration that should help homeowners start repairs.
Our prayers are with you in this aftermath of this winter storm. And secondly, to let you know what I told Governor Abbott and Mayor Turner and Judge Hidalgo and the congressional delegation, that we will be true partners to help you recover and rebuild.
The president also spoke about ramping up vaccines. He says he wants to turn more churches and stadiums into vaccination sites like the one he saw today here at NRG. Back to you.
All right, Grace, thank you. You can see more highlights and hear reaction to the president's visit to Houston on our website, khou.com, our social media pages, and our KHOU 11 app.